Is it that Marvel's that good, or is everyone else just that bad? Well, you can't accuse Bryan Singer of not covering his bases, because he throws everything into this latest X-Men installment. Problem is, a lot of it doesn't stick, or make any sense. This movie is chock full of X-Men, so many that it seems like the first hour of this film is dedicated to just setting up all the characters for the final scene of the film. Matter of fact, the structure of this movie reminds me of another film in recent history. The movie starts off with a rousing sequence as we see the origins of Apocalypse in ancient Egypt. As I used to be an avid comic book reader, I vaguely know about the character of Apocalypse, but I pity anyone who knows nothing about him because the movie doesn't explain any of what we see in that opening scene. Be that as it may, Apocalypse is unleashed eons later in the 1980s. Apparently, the screenwriter Simon Kinberg liked the Avengers Age of Ultron so much, he stole Ultron's motivations from that film and used them here for Apocalypse. After touching a TV screen for all of 2 minutes, no. After touching a TV screen, Pac decides that the Earth must be cleansed. Man, supervillains are so quick to jump to that trope. Everyone must die. Maybe they just need to get laid when they gain consciousness. They'd see there are some things worth living for, and all of us humans are not so bad. It's never really made clear why Pac wants to cleanse the Earth. Just because he saw some bad on TV? Well, first he says he wants to cleanse the Earth, but then he develops a plan to capture Xavier, and his goals change inexplicably. Bottom line, Apocalypse is the latest, uncompelling cinematic villain, following in the footsteps of Doctor Doom and Ultron. Let alone, he looks absolutely ridiculous. This is the same guy that played Poe Dameron in the new Star Wars. Everybody's saying we jumped the gun in criticizing his look based on those early photos. No, we didn't. When your supervillain is the shortest guy in the room, it's really hard to take him seriously as a threat. Let me ask you, why does a guy who can turn his enemies into dust need 4 horsemen? Especially Angel, Storm, and Psylocke. Not throwing any shade, but in the grand scheme of things, are these the strongest X-Men you could find? By the way, none of those 3 characters, Angel, Storm, and Psylocke, are given anything hardly to do. Now Magneto, yeah, I can see making him your wingman. Speaking of Magneto, Michael Fassbender has done with that role what Robert Downey Jr. has done with Tony Stark, what Chris Evans has done with Cap, what Hugh Jackman has done with Wolverine. That is, he's made it tough for anyone, any other actor to play that role. As always, he's great in the role, and the filmmakers must agree because they spend more time developing Magneto than Apocalypse. Problem is, did they really need to create new suffering for Eric to motivate him to join Apocalypse? Did they have to ruin a potentially major character to make Eric angry enough to become Magneto once again? Look, we get it. Eric's been f***ed over by the human race. We really didn't need to add more to his misery. I think we've established that he has enough to be pissed about to join Apocalypse. So the scene in this film where Eric experiences yet another tragedy, while it's compelling and it gives Michael Fassbender a chance to act his ass off, it really is kind of like we've been there, done that, enough. I'm just realizing that Eric was kind of channeling a domesticated Clint Barton, and it was kind of just as much out of nowhere. The new standout is Sophie Turner from Game of Thrones. She makes a great Jean Grey. She comes off as both strong and vulnerable. Jennifer Lawrence, on the other hand, looks as if she'd rather be any place else other than this movie. She rarely appears in her true blue form. Listen, you knew about the makeup when you signed up, girlfriend. And she maintains one expression throughout the movie. I also found it strange that she is the leader of the X-Men in this movie, and there's no indication that Cyclops, who eventually does become the leader, has any leadership capability at all. Well, he'll become leader as long as Lawrence and Jackman aren't around in the script. Horrible pacing, patchy editing. There's a scene at a movie theater that serves absolutely no purpose but to remind us that this takes place in the 1980s, and it also gives us another Star Wars reference in a superhero film again this year. Also, an uneven first act, a second act with a great fight scene involving a character whose only purpose it is to provide fan service instead of future films, and a third act battle with a conclusion that is the definition of anticlimactic. I mean, seriously, it's as though Bryan Singer looked at his stopwatch and was like, oh, let's wrap this up. It's like Josh Trank stepped in to direct the conclusion. Under scrutiny, this film just doesn't hold up. Did anyone at Fox see Civil War? And if they did, they still felt confident putting this out? I give it 2 out of 5 reels. But let me hear from you. Did you like this movie? If so, I definitely want to hear from you. Leave your comments below and let me know what you liked about it. I really want to know. Oh, and look for my spoiler review where I really go in. Until then, that's the Martini. And if you like what you see, please subscribe.